13th, 2025. This is our first zoning board meeting for the year. So let's start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome to everyone here on Zoom and in person. For tonight's meeting, looks like we've got the full zoning board here. Roger's online. Piers and Jesse and Ed Herman and myself are here in person. So we've got a full board here for this evening. So our first item on new business is to discuss and vote to approve the minutes from December 9th zoning board meeting and the December 17th zoning board special meeting. So hopefully everybody's had the opportunity to review those. Let's start with the 9th meeting. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to the minutes for December 9th?
I have one comment, and I don't know. Jess Garrettson, one comment, I don't know if it's an addition or correction necessarily, but the very last paragraph of the first page, Rand has been pushing me to especially address our ditches as fire ditch and or fire/irrigation. And the reason he wants fire mentioned every time I get a chance is that's where a lot of people's insurance hinges that we do have fire protection. That was the only thing I said. I wasn't in attendance. I was on Zoom, but that's the only thing I have any comments on.
So is what you're stating is in this case, the irrigation/fire ditch? Is that what you said?
Yes, yes. I just put, what I did is put fire out in parentheses /irrigation.
Okay. Any other additions or corrections? Roger, did you have anything on the December 9th meeting?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Ed?
No.
Okay, so we'll do these together. Excuse me, once we look at the 17th minutes as well. So let's look at the December 17th. Any additions or corrections on those minutes?
Again, Jess Garrettson on page 2, the very top line, just to stay in line with our codes and stuff, I'd like to see that fourth word read adjacent rather than affected, or put adjacent/affected. And that's my only comments on those minutes.
Okay. Ed, anything you saw?
No.
All right, Roger? Roger, are you okay with the December 17th minutes?
Yes,
Okay. All right. If there's no other additions or corrections, then I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, Jess Garrettson so moves to accept the two sets of minutes on the 9th and 17th of December with the two words added.
Okay, so Jesse has moved to have a second. All right, so we've got a motion to accept both the December 9th and December 17th zoning board meeting minutes with the amendments, seconded by Ed Herman. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. That is taken care of. Next item on the agenda is discuss with possible action on a zoning change request for 601 State Street, or commonly referred to as the Pitkin Train Depot. And there was a number of pages sent to us by Jake Schellenberg. I guess I'll start first to open it up to Jake if he'd like to comment on the zoning request change.
Hey, Jake Schellenberg here, Pitkin, Colorado. So yes, I'm a stressed out owner of the historic Pitkin train depot. And I'm, to be honest, I really wasn't interested at first. But as I kept thinking about it and just the value that I see that it brings to Pitkin really intrigued me to focus on making it period correct, close to what it looked like back when it was built in 1881. And so that being said, I obviously ended up with it, and they had kind of turned it into a makeshift house. Not a very good job, in my opinion. Well, it's not just my opinion, it just wasn't a great job. So, and I just don't feel like it represents what the history that it holds by it being a house. Everyone's, the first thought is, well, turn it, are you going to turn it into an Airbnb? I don't think that's the best use of that property, because it really limits the number of people that can come to Pitkin and appreciate the deep history that we have here in Pitkin, versus something else where it's more of a public building that people can come in and out of, where they come over there to have a cup of coffee or eat a donut, or you had kids playground out. So I don't know exactly. I haven't goes that deep into it, but the first hurdle would be that the zoning does have to change in order to accommodate, legally bringing people through there and maybe having some slight revenue stream, whether you're selling t-shirts or a cup of coffee or, so. I think that's about it. That's why I think it should be changed. You tell me why you think it's a bad idea.
So just to be clear with everyone in the room and then online too, on a zoning request to change the zoning from either residential to business or business to residential, it first comes to the zoning board, who then can make a recommendation when it goes to the Board of Trustees. So that's why we're hearing this tonight. The decision of anything tonight, not final, because it's got to go to the Board of Trustees as well. So with that, I'll open it up to the board for any questions or comments regarding the request first. And at that point, then I'll open it up to the public for any public comments. There will be, if this goes on to the Board of Trustees, there will be a public hearing of the Board of Trustees, just so you're aware of that. But then after we have any public comments, then I'll pull it back up to the board to decide what we want to do. So let's start with the zoning board members first.
Yes. I'd like to ask Jake a question. Did he also purchase the Nancy Platt property to the northeast of him as well?
No.
Yeah.
Nancy's property.
Anything?
Did he ask if Jake purchased an adjacent property?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
St. Nancy Plaza. Upstream to it.
All right, Roger, do you have any other questions or comments?
Not at this time.
All right, how about Jesse or Ed?
Can you expand on exactly what you're gonna do on the grounds itself on the exterior? As far as the ground, the footprint that it sits on, is there gonna be like tables and chairs and like a patio or anything like that, or?
Well, it has a pretty large deck. And so kind of my thought was that'd be a nice place to have chairs, you know, for people to sit out and have a cup of coffee or, but as far as doing anything between the patio and what we know as State Street, you can't really do anything there because that's technically State Street. It sets on like a 0 setback. And then, you know, they had a couple of beds in the depot, like they tried to make it, like I said, they tried to make it a house. And all that's been removed. So we took that wall out that they used to make a bedroom and so I even took the bathroom out. I'd really like to put an addition on the back side of the depot for the bathroom. And that way the original train depot has its original footprint without any modifications.
So you feel like the outhouses are not adequate?
Well, I have thought about actually taking and salvaging that and making it look like an outhouse from the outside, but if you went inside, you go to your bathroom. But anyway.
It does have well and septic, correct?
Correct.
There was a host of things, this is Jess again, a host of things run across my mind as I saw this petition. First of all, I admire you for jumping in here and wanting to bring our history back up to speed. And I remember through history, the Main Street was the original business district, quote, with the liquor stores and the mercantile and different businesses. But as soon as the railroad came, the depot became the hub. And most of the goods came in and out through the depot and the train. So I see that as quite a improvement. Through the years, probably at least last 5 years, every time we talk about things zoning, I keep questioning the number of residences we have in our business/commercial district. And then I always consider a lot of the current businesses that basically work out of their homes that are in residential. And I don't see a bit of a problem having a residence in a commercial zoned area, and I don't see a problem having a commercial in a resident owned zoned area due to the uniqueness of Pitkin. Having said that, we've also run into a number of things called spot zoning, for example. And right across Alpine Lane towards the mountain from the depot is commercial. So that kind of helps me come along. And we're constantly reminded about the challenge of meeting budgets and improvements, everything from streets to city hall to Main Street pavement. And knowing the amount of sales tax that comes to the town of Pitkin to meet those budget items has definitely improved since all three of our businesses that were for sale in 2012 have been bought and improved and definitely helped the income for the town of Pitkin through sales tax. And I'm reminded also that we've had at least 2 mill levy elections that keep getting voted down. And I'm reminded we keep getting more and more requests for more snow plowing, for example. What do you want to call those things? Anyways, we keep finding more and more places to spend money, right down to possible bridge repairs and updates, Main Street resurfacing, a number of things. So financially, I feel like that to encourage you to have all the sales tax you possibly have. I am, for example, in favor of rezoning that segment of ground to the business/commercial district.
All right, thank you, Jesse. Ed, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I'd also be in favor of that as well.
Okay. Roger, do you have anything else?
Well, just off the top of my head, it's getting real commercially on that block all the way up to the Silver Plume. Is there any thought given to asking those people if they would like to have commercial zoning, which is multi-zoning? It allows them to have residence or a business. It's not like it's going to damage the residential people that are already there. They don't want a business, but they'll have options. It's the spot zoning means your neighbor can't do what you're doing. And I think that whole block is going to get a little bit of that turmoil, unless you consider at least allowing them to know what's going on and and working in that direction. We got the Newcomb Center. I mean, it's yeah, it's, I don't know. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
All right, thank you, Roger.
And you catch what he said.
I'll hope.
Yeah.
I can't understand it.
I can't.
But Roger, I'm gonna try to rephrase what you said. Sarah was having a hard time, and other board members are having a hard time understanding what you were saying. But
Okay.
I'll
right.
state it. I'll restate what I think you said and tell me
Okay.
if that's correct or not. But I believe what you said, was there any thought giving to rezoning State Street because of the number of businesses up, like starting at the Silver Plume and coming down that are business district already? So I think your statement was, has any thought been given to taking taking the State Street from, say, now I'm probably gonna put words in your mouth now, 6th Street to 9th Street, and making that entire area business district?
Yes, offering it to those property owners.
Okay.
It will help getting road improvement. The Newcomb Center already has parking problems. This is going to create parking problems. We're going to have to think of this area in terms of zoned commercial if we're gonna allow every other property to be commercial, the way it's looking already. So anyway,
Okay, Roger, we were pretty good there for a little bit, and then you got real muffled.
oh, okay,
So,
let me back away a little bit from the, maybe you can hear me better.
Can you type it into Zoom? Is that what you,
yeah, in the chat.
can you type it in chat? Because you're coming in and out being really muffled, and it's hard to understand what you're
Okay,
saying.
all right,
He can't be understood. He cannot participate remotely. It's in our procedure. I cannot understand, but every probably 12 word that he's
Yeah.
saying.
I'll simple.
That's one of
well, I
those.
think you got the
Have
gist
to
of
be
what I had to say, so, anyway,
Let's see if we can put it in chat. So Roger, I'm gonna give you a little bit of time to try to type what you said in chat if you can. Because we do have with the Zoom, if we can't understand what you're saying, can't participate in the meeting if we can't understand. So if you could type it in Zoom, that would definitely help.
okay, I've
While
already.
you're okay, while you're trying to type, I'm gonna go ahead and give just some of my thoughts on this whole issue. First of all, just with the train depot, with the history that it holds in this town, you know, I kind of looked at it after I received the documents and started researching the depot just a little bit. This train depot is the heart of this town since 1881. And it's like Jesse said, a lot of the business in the early days was mainly on Main Street until the train depot came around. And then it became the hub of goods coming in and out of this town. I was amazed as I was looking up some of the information to find a ticket for the train from Denver to Pitkin was $15 back in 1890. Hello. $15, 15. It was like, wow. So it was a big thing for this town to bring goods from Denver, to take whatever goods or things from the mine back to Denver. I just think when it comes to our history of this town, I think it's huge that we try to maintain that. And for Jake to take on a project like this to try to return it back to period correct on the inside, to open it up is where people can see it. I just think is a really neat idea. I understand, you know, that it's currently in residential district. Back in the day, there was no difference between residential and business districts. It was just the town of Pitkin. So we do have to kind of deal with that today because we do have two different types of districts in this town. I also took a look at the state statute on spot zoning. And the state statute is fairly clear that if the municipality is not to rezone, where it can only affect one person. However, there are some examples given where towns were able to change the zoning to say commercial, given in some cases the historical nature of the building. So in my mind, that's where I see we're kind of sitting with this is, yes, it could be spot zoning if we just did one. To Roger's point, maybe the town would look to increase the zoning for business more than just the one area, maybe up and down State Street, maybe from 6th Street to 9th Street. Since we have the Newcomb Center there, the Plumes on the corner that is business already. And so maybe that's I'll just say maybe that's a recommendation for the Board of Trustees to take up as well. So when I look at that spot zoning, even what Jesse said, behind the depot is commercial along Main Street there. So it does have commercial property next to it. I'll even throw out there that one of our citizens suggested at a board of trustee meeting a while back that maybe the town, when the depot was for sale, maybe the town should purchase the depot and use it for something like our artists in town to sell their goods out of. Well, even if we did something like that, we'd be crossing the same bridge. We'd have to be looking at changing it from a residential to business zoning as well. Which I think either way is a good idea. I think Jake spelled out, according to our zoning code, the different changing area conditions, the historical significance of the train depot, errors in original zoning, and the things that we asked for in the zoning code. How it's going to enhance people coming in, how it's going to help the economic side of the town of Pitkin. I think he answered those well in his documentation. So those are my initial thoughts on the topic. I see Roger was able to, I think that's Roger was able to type something. Can you see that? I can't.
Roger says, got the gist of what he was trying to say, agree with what Jesse and Ed P are saying, especially in regards to changing the whole block. He agrees with 6 to 9 feet.
Okay. Thank you, Roger, for clarifying so we could understand it. Any other comments from the board?
Yes, I appreciate Jake Schoenberg going to our section 21 and especially going on from B on down to the end of section 21, answering all those questions in his narrative that he sent to us. So I'm very appreciative of that input, right in line with our ordinance. Thank you.
All right. Do you have anything else?
No.
Okay. So then at this time, I'll open it up for public comments from either in-house or in Zoom, if we can understand from Zoom. Mr. Olson.
Yes. Are you able to hear me?
Cam.
Fantastic.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. I think it's understood what benefits a change in zoning to this property could bring to the community. However, I think there should be some concern in your consideration as it relates to what the impact will be on traffic patterns. Where will the parking of potential customers or clients of the property, where will that occur? How will that impact circulation in the community? Certainly back in the day when it was the train depot and was the center of the community, there weren't a great number of ATVs floating around. And I think that's something that should be considered as this goes forward. I have no objection to it. However, I think there should be concern about how commercial expansion impacts access, parking, potential impacts to the flow of emergency vehicles should there be a problem that would require the use of State Street or 6th Street in that area. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Pete. Any other comments from the public, Zoom or in-house?
Audience.
Thank you all. Yes, this is Tom good. In regards to spot zoning, I understand the concept of I'm trying to back up into history. So, but what you're gonna run into with this idea of spot zoning is the question will be, is there sufficient evidence to indicate that the reasoning was not merely intended to confer a benefit to a property owner? So, and there's a whole other list of other stuff, and I'm sure you've read that. In my opinion, and this crossed my mind too, if you're going to pull this off successfully, you're going to have to do more than just one spot. If you, as you said, pull it off from 9th to 6th and turn that all into commercial, then you have changed the neighborhood, and it's not been targeting or benefiting per se one individual. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
Susie has
Oh.
online.
Susie, you online? You have a comment?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Okay.
I was just thinking how Sixth Street has that bridge too that comes across from River Street. So that adds another aspect to the traffic, I would say, because that's used by quite a few people coming down from like 11th, 10th, 9th, 8th, 7th, downriver, and then also back there on the back Aspen Lane. So that's something else to think about as far as traffic and the 6th Street location. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Sue.
Susie. Thanks.
All right, anyone else? All right, so I don't see anybody else in the public wishing to say anything. So I'm going to bring it back up to the board members. And I think Jesse said he has something to comment on.
Yes, Jess here again. Playing with the streets the last several years, that's an 80-foot right of way. And Jake is very correct. That platform is very close. The front porch platform is very close to the mountainside of State Street. And through the years, we have looked and considered of possibly the ditch culvert, the fire ditch culvert on 6th Street is much closer to the property line where it should be than where the ditch is. And if that ditch were to be moved closer to the deck and run it upstream in a parallel to that boundary, we can bring it with the ease all the way to 7th Street with virtually no earth moving except make a ditch and fill in a ditch and move a couple of culverts. So the parking on State Street would benefit not only the enterprise of the depot, but also 4th of July, the Fireman's Day, and Pitkin days, where we have such a parking problem on State Street trying to get to the Newcomb Center. And the town should consider all of that stretch as far as I'm concerned on ditching, but I know my experience. Now, 6th Street is also 66 feet wide. And there's, by moving the ditch upstream on 6th Street and moving the alley culvert, which is non-existent today because of fill-in, we could obtain a lot more parking there on 6th Street. And even though it appears that the two homes on the downstream side of 6th Street, fencing shows where the property line is, and it's very easy to claim that as your own property, but it is not. So it wouldn't be hard to make parking on both sides of Sixth Street. So these are some of the things that I have been considering as soon as Mr. Schellenberg made this proposal to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. So one of the, this is Ed,
Pinalto.
Ed Pinalto, sorry. There's two Eds here. Edward George is here too. I guess my big question on the spot zoning is to know, I think individually we've got a lot of opinions on it. But I'd like to hear from the town attorney to the spot zoning, if it is an issue, if it's a historical building, that someone's going to do something like Jake wants to do with it, if that would be an issue for the town, or if it's not, then we proceed with possibly just doing the depot. Or if it is an issue, then we consider what even Roger proposed, and that's, or Tom proposed too, looking at State Street from say 6th Street to 9th Street and rezoning the whole thing. Now I know it's the zoning board's job to make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, but I kind of have an either or possible recommendation, and I'm not sure we can do that or not. So if anybody else has any input on it, I'd be willing to listen.
It does say in the zoning code that if you need additional time for more information, that that's an appropriate course of action. It says that in number 6, additional study time and further investigation may be required before the referral can be completed and submitted to the Board of Trustees.
Were you in section 21? Thank you.
Yeah, 21.
Yes. Sorry to vacate it here for a moment, Mr. Pinalto, but I am in agreement of consulting an attorney. What followed that?
So my comment was, I'd like to hear from the town attorney on exceptions to a spot zoning statute. If that's allowed, or if he's had some previous cases that could be allowed on. It's the zoning board's job to make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. But I'm wondering if we can make a recommendation, because in the past, the zoning board has not had access to the town attorney. Only the Board of Trustees or the mayor pro tem, or the town clerk. So part of me says, can we make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees? First, getting input from the town attorney, and then if the town attorney says the spot zoning is not, doesn't advise or advise against it, then we look at rezoning State Street from 6th to 9th.
This is Jess again. Especially considering the public comments, both here in our auditorium and on Zoom. Will spot zoning qualify if we run from 6th Street to 9th Street, which all parallels the business district? And I believe the comments are very supportive of encouraging that. And I don't see any bad ill effects on residences there. Having owned a residence on Main Street, which was business, I felt like there was no problem for taxation or anything that I was jeopardized or penalized for having a residence in business district. I feel like personally that I would be really willing to make a recommendation tonight to the trustees. Thank you.
Would you like to put that recommendation into a motion?
Unless you read wants to. Jess Garrison. Mr. Chairman, I would like to move to make a recommendation to Pitkin trustees that we accept the petition from Mr. Schellenberg with the depot, but adding to that, not only the depot's 3 or 4 lots being commercial, but run the mountainside of State Street all the way up to 9th Street.
So Sarah, would you read that back, please?
Motion to recommend to the Board of Trustees to accept the petition from Mr. Schellenberg and also rezone State Street from 6th to 9th Streets as commercial.
So just to clarify on that motion, is that on both sides of State Street? I believe Jesse said the mountainside, but
Yes, I did say mountainside.
I don't know a better way to define that.
Okay, the northwest side of State Street. Opposite of the creek side of
Okay.
State Street.
All right.
Well,
All right.
no problem.
So Jesse's got a motion. Sarah reread it to us. Do I have a second for that motion?
I didn't hear the motion.
All right. So we've got a motion that was moved by Jesse, seconded by Ed Herman. And that is to accept Jake Schellenberg's request, and in addition, include 6th to 9th Street on the mountainside of State Street as commercial property. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so the vote of 4-0, that recommendation will be sent on to the Board of Trustees. All right. Move on to the next item. Next item of business is to discuss with possible action on zoning code proposal revisions. At our last meeting, we discussed or we talked about some of the revisions. Not everybody had the opportunity to review the revisions that have been done already. So it was, I guess it was recommended, maybe by myself, and then several others agreed that Sarah and I would sit down and take the zoning code and look at the minutes from previous meetings to make sure that all of the changes that we've made in the zoning code were approved and what the vote was by the zoning board. So we've put that into the document that Sarah, I think, sent out. I think it was available online as well. And then as we went through that, as Sarah and I went through it, we identified a couple of other areas that need a little bit further clarification. So what I'd like to do, if everybody's in agreement, is start with those bullet points that we identified first. And most of them are really real simple. I think they'll be easy to go through. And then we can take a look at the entire document. And there's something else that we need to discuss. It'll kind of uncovered as well with some of it. I'm going to save that for the end. So the first item on the agenda that we put on the agenda is to note that the above ground OWTS markers were identified as a fee exemption in the definitions, but it is actually not in the zoning code. We did not add it to the zoning code. So in the definitions on page 5, page 6, it was voted on to add that definition on on-site wastewater treatment system marker. December 18th, 2023, vote of 5-0. And that was to identify any fence type structure which marks above ground, to identify what is below ground in relation to septic tanks and soil treatment areas commonly known as the leach field. So we identified it in the definitions. We just did not put it in the zoning code itself. So I'm just going to make a recommendation and you can tell me, yes, that sounds good, or no, it does not. And the recommendation is if you go to section 12E, I'm scrolling, I'm trying to find it. And it's under fence setback. And at the end of that paragraph, if we were to add something like above ground OWTS markers are exempt from the fence permit fee, but must meet setbacks and fence height requirements.
Mr. Chairman, also in E, we mentioned, as it's printed in the 22, it says a building permit must be obtained. And we said that we had a fence permit now, and that need to be changed from building permit to fence permit.
That,
Do you agree?
yes, that is correct. And that is in the change on the,
Oh, I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
sorry, and that, I didn't read that part, but that it was already in the changes that we had in the document. So that is correct. It's not a building permit, it's a fence permit for fences.
And while I have you in sections 12C and D, do you also have it listed that it would be lanes/alleys or alleys/lanes
We,
in both C and D
We do.
paragraphs?
we do, but I want to save that until after we go these bullet points. Then we'll go through the whole document. talk about
Oh, okay.
all the changes.
All right. Pardon me.
That's all right. So is everybody in agreement in section 12E on the fence setback? If we add verbiage above ground OWTS markers are exempt from the fence permit fee, but must meet setbacks and fence height requirements.
Jess is in agreement.
Roger, are you okay with that?
Yes, I'm in agreement.
Okay. Sarah, if you've got that modified in there, that takes care of that. Then the next item we found was the OWTS fence setbacks. And I saved this all a little bit of time because that's included in that same statement.
Amen.
Okay, then section 20 and 24 for consistency. And I'm going to paraphrase here. I'm going to get to section 20 first. Okay, and then section 20 is on violations. And it says complaints may be submitted by any resident or property owner of the town of Pitkin. And then just keep that in thought, or keep that thought in mind, because then I'm gonna go down to section 24. And it says complaints, any person aggrieved by an apparent violation. So we have one point, we say any person aggrieved can make a complaint. But in section 20, we say complaints may be submitted by any resident or property owner of the town of Pitkin. And this, I'm going to just throw it out there. This is one of the first items that I see that we may need to ask the attorney on, because if we limit complaints by any resident or property owner of the town of Pitkin, I don't know if we're discriminating or not.
Who would you be discriminating against?
Any non-resident or non-property owner.
Well, if I rent a home from you in Pitkin by the month or the year, that becomes my residence. And I file that with the voter registration in Gunnison County. I would have a right to register a complaint, wouldn't I? Because I qualify as a resident.
Yes, but what about a person that's a non-resident or doesn't own property? Are we saying they can't file a complaint?
So you're saying a Texan comes up here and rents your home. He's a non-resident. Therefore, he could not register a complaint.
That's my question. I don't know. I've got to wonder if we are discriminating, and if we're discriminating, I don't think we want to go down that road, but I would say that needs to be a question the town attorney could answer for us.
Yep. Mr. Nassau.
Chris has a comment.
Jay wants to file a complaint on your behalf.
We
Yeah,
can't
well-
hear you.
So Chris's just a comment was, what if Jarvis wanted to file a complaint on your behalf?
Well, my memory back when we were doing this for the 22 adoption, I felt like at that time we covered all the bases, but I've not considered your comment here. I assume if he would be my designated representative, he could on my behalf, like an attorney could file a complaint.
Not if it's for,
At that point, he wouldn't be a resident or a property owner.
No, he'd be a representative of a property owner and resident in Pitkin. One's attorney could file a complaint on my behalf, correct? Maybe we ought to send it to our attorney. Yeah,
I personally, I think it's worth just asking the town attorney for clarification. And
I can agree.
I'll just put that as one of the bullet.
Can redirect Sarah, our clerk, to do such a thing because we don't have that pipeline?
Well, what we're going to do, and it's one of the bullet points here, is there were some other meetings that we had asked for input from the town attorney.
Yep. And
so as we get to that bullet point, we're going to have a list that we'll give to Sarah, and she can send to the town attorney for clarification. That's just being the first one on the list.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next one's coming up.
I'm jotting notes, and I think Sarah is too, so. And then we'll come back and revisit this after we get an answer from the town attorney. There, you got it. You got it. All right.
When do you want to address swapping number 7 and number 8 in this B category of section 21? Right at the bottom. 7 and 8.
Okay, let's do that when we go through the whole document, because I believe that's been done.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
So 20 and 24, we'll come back to after town attorney. And the next item on the list that we saw was section 18A, building permits. And second to get there.
You not sure that is section 17? My record shows it's section 17, not 18.
Okay, it's on under in their
Page 12.
yes, it's under section 18A. Sorry, I finally figured out where 18A was. Keep in mind, there was some renumbering in the new document, so it may not relate to what it is in the existing zoning code.
The 22 code?
Correct.
Because I'm referencing the 22 code.
Yeah, and because we had some where we moved some sections around, so it throws the number off.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's where we're getting at. So it's under building permits. And at the end of that first paragraph where it says no building or structure shall be erected, moved, structurally altered unless all required permits for said work have been issued by the authority having jurisdiction. No permit shall be issued unless the building or structure is in full conformance with this code or unless a variance has been issued by the Board of Zoning Adjustment. And it ended there. And I think we need to clarify after that board, the Board of Zoning Adjustment or the Board of Trustees as is applicable. And the reason being is some variances can be a recommendation from the zoning board, but then have to go to the Board of Trustees for the final. So by adding that phrase at the end of that, so it says, unless a variance has been issued by the Board of Zoning Adjustment or the Board of Trustees as is applicable. Everybody okay with adding that verbiage?
Yes. Yes.
Roger, you okay with that?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so I think Sarah's got that change in there already. Okay, then if we go down to Appendix A, Appendix A talks about the town inspections. And I'm going to go the easy way first. The first one I want to talk about is the state inspection. So if you jump down, I think the current zoning code, and I don't have the current code right in front of me.
Page 20 is appendix A, if that's what you're looking
That's
for.
what I'm looking for in here. So right now, in the zoning, appendix A zoning code, it just says under electrical, we'll do that one first. It says the state of Colorado requires state electrical permit for all construction within the state. The state will also inspect the construction for adherence to the National Electric Code, which is in effect at the time of construction. At least 2 state inspections will be performed. I took a look at the verbiage that Gunnison uses, Gunnison County. Because Gunnison County does the same thing. They use state inspections for both electrical and plumbing. And this is what the county put on it. And I think it makes it just a little bit clearer. But the county says the town, well, I'm going to rephrase it to the town of Pitkin instead of county of Gunnison. The town of Pitkin does not issue electrical permits or perform electrical inspections for electric installations. Electrical permits are issued by the state and electrical inspections are conducted by a state electrical inspector. And at that point, if anybody needs to know what code is being used for electrical, they've got to go to the state electrical inspector.
It makes number 3 more easily to understand.
Roger, would you agree with that? Would you say we should do something different or?
I'm not sure you can understand me yet.
I
My,
can now.
Okay, my issue with this particular section is section 18, item 18A, I believe it is. No, it's H, item H.
Okay, you got real fuzzy again, Roger. I'm not exactly sure where you said.
Okay, it's under section 18, item H.
Let's to go back to building. permit.
Yes,
Okay,
the code,
so,
page 13.
so let's save that, Roger, until we go through the entire document.
Okay,
Okay, so for right now, I just want to go to the appendix on the electrical permit to make sure we're okay with the verbiage on the electrical permit in appendix A.
yes, that is state inspections,
Okay, so are
separate
you,
from Pitkin.
are you okay with what I read as a possible change? Where
Yes,
the town of, okay,
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
and Ed's okay with it, okay, and I'm okay with it because I helped write it.
Okay, as stated from Gunnison County.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it says on the website for Gunnison County. And then right below that, for plumbing inspections, is the exact same way on the county website. So it would read, the town of Pitkin does not perform plumbing inspections. Plumbing permits are issued and inspections are conducted by the state plumbing inspector.
yes,
All right, Ed's okay with it, Jesse's good?
Yes, that's on number 4 of the current appendix A.
Okay. And then on town inspections, we have foundation in the current code, framing in the current code. I would recommend that we add final and, need to have a final inspection and then a certificate of occupancy when required. Not sure why framing got put in there, Sarah. You see that?
Yeah.
Currently, foundation is 1 and framing is 2.
Correct.
And
And then a final.
You did.
Yeah.
I know we discussed and was highly recommended that we put a certificate of occupancy back into our code. Now, I don't remember if we addressed a final inspection as being anything different than certificate of occupancy.
There is a separate final inspection from the certificate of occupancy. You can't get the certificate of occupancy until after the final inspection is done.
So we need to list both of them then.
Well, the certificate of occupancy is not necessarily an inspection. It's the certificate issued after the final inspection.
Okay, yeah, well, so do we need to phrase it a final inspection followed by a certificate of occupancy?
I would say we have a final inspection and then a bullet point for certificate of occupancy is issued when required.
You mean the builder or the owner has to request the certificate of occupancy? Right now, it got taken out in 22 because some input said that the only time we need a certificate of occupancy was from finance companies or insurance people. And it got taken out in 22. It was in 12. But I feel with the recommendation from our attorney back up the road that a certificate of occupancy ought to follow immediately behind the final inspection so that the owner is covered.
I would agree with that on, say, a building a home. But if I do a if the building inspector does a final inspection, let's say on a garage, we wouldn't necessarily issue a certificate of occupancy, I don't believe.
Correct. There's not an occupancy involved there.
Right.
Final inspection
Right.
would be it.
I know.
Yes, Tom.
Certificate of completion.
Oh, certificate.
Oh, certificate of completion. Yes. That's true. So we could phrase it as after the final inspection, a certificate of occupancy or a certificate of completion will be issued.
Does the certificate of completion need to specify an accessory building and the CO a residence?
Do we need, are we splitting hairs? I don't know.
They seem rather self-defining to me.
I think so too, because a certificate of occupancy is in a structure that's going to be occupied.
Yes.
You're going to live. A certificate of completion would be given for say, a garage, a outbuilding.
Yeah, the only reason I brought that up was because we're trying to make this so that layperson can understand it. But I buy with what you two are saying.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So I did, as I'm looking through that, maybe I ought to wrap that up. So we have foundation inspection, a framing inspection, a final inspection, and then did you get some verbiage there, Sarah?
Yes, I just put number 4 as appropriate, a certificate of occupancy or certificate of completion will be issued following the final inspection.
Good, okay. I also, as I just grabbed the inspection list, there is also a footer inspection. I think maybe that's where we got the 4 inspections.
That might have been what I meant to type.
Yeah.
When does that come?
The-
It goes foundation, then footer,
It would be footer and then foundation.
footer, then foundation?
Yeah. It's,
Okay. Before framing.
yeah, before framing.
Both become the same.
They can. Okay. So we're okay with then the way we've worded the town inspections and state inspections? Okay. I guess I'm going to jump over the one item for the town attorney for clarification first. and hit this one right away, and that's the next bullet point. And then we'll come back to the items for town attorney. As Sarah and I were going through this, Sarah had a good comment, a good suggestion that perhaps we take the inspections that we voted on an earlier meeting to adopt the inspections in the 2012 zoning code. But to take those inspections, because they do reference, such as example on a footer inspection, it references reinforcing steel as per plans number 4 or half-inch minimum in section R403, and reference those back to our Universal Building Code of 1997, of which we have the ordinance for that we should be following. What I ran into when I started drilling into this and looking at it is if you look at UBC 1997 volume 1 that our ordinance says we'll follow, there is no section R403. But if you look in the International Residential Code that started in 2002, there is a section R403, and that carries in 2002, 5, all the way up to 2012, 15, and 18. So out of curiosity, I was trying to figure out, okay, how did we get international residential codes in the inspections in the 2012 zoning code? And as I started looking at it closer, it references that we will use the International Residential Code for our building codes. But we have an ordinance that says something different. Makes me scratch my head. So here's saying all that. I have to want, I know we discussed at a previous meeting of staying with the 1997 UBC code rather than going to the International Residential Code. I also discovered last week in looking at this that our House in Denver passed another bill last year that stated any municipality after July 1st of 2026 that updates their building code to a more current code must adopt the 2026 energy code. So then I question myself, do we want to stay with the 97 UBC code? Or would we be better off as a town to move to a little bit newer IRC code to hopefully prevent us from being forced to go to a later building code in the future, therefore being forced to the 2026 zoning code? So I have a thought on it. I'm going to ask for your input. I don't know if the 4 of us on the zoning board are qualified to make the decision as to which code we ought to use. So I have an idea that I'd be willing to chair a committee and to ask our building inspector to be on that committee and to ask one of our local building contractors to be on that committee and perhaps compare the 2012 to 2015 codes and the 15 to 18 codes to see which one would be better. I've found a couple of documents that do the comparison, and in my looking at it, and 15 looked like it was pretty good, and then you go to 18 and they back some of the codes back down below what they were in 15. So my recommendation would be to have a committee of perhaps Tom, myself, and Phil Deutsch to review which building code might be the best for the town of Pitkin. And I think if 2 very knowledgeable people got together of the codes, I know a little bit about the codes. I have the files that show the differences. I think we could sit down and come up with a recommendation pretty quick, I think. Give me your thoughts.
This is Jess, and I've not done the extensive research that you have yet. But my understanding visiting with Phil Deutsch, I believe they are trying to follow the 2018 code. And my understanding from him is it was easier to obtain that than the 15, and that our 97 was probably outdated, that we were too old. Now, that's just a layman's input, visiting with a gentleman that I highly respect. So put that in your pipe and smoke it with your committee, but initially I would tend to lean towards 2018.
Okay. I will say the county is on 2021, which is,
Oh,
I think, my opinion is way more stringent than we want to go with Pitkin. But that's just my thought. Roger or Ed, you have any thoughts?
Well, I would
Go ahead,
tendency to agree with Jesse on this. 2018 is probably all we need. They're constantly messing with these codes for all kinds of political reasons. They don't really affect the structural integrity of buildings being built in Pitkin, Colorado, so directly as they just influence the price of building there, various different things. If you want to raise the cost of construction, yeah, go with the, which does not bother the county one little bit. That is not their problem. They do their best to keep the no growth thing going. So, yeah, I think this is a decision Pitkin needs to make where they want to stand on it. I think we do have leverage as an incorporated town. And I think the state likes to dictate, but I think they also have to bend a little bit with us. We cannot follow everything they want. We don't have the money. We don't have the infrastructure. There are a lot of things we need probably first. Fire hydrants, for one. I'll just bring that up.
Okay, thank you, Roger. So if no one opposes, I'd like to form a committee with Tom Gibb if he's willing. I've talked to Phil. He said that he would be willing, and myself, that we could get together just as a simple committee and try to identify which code we feel like would be the best for Pitkin. I think I'm like everybody else. I'd lean on the side of the easiest one, but I don't want us to get caught into a pickle where we're forced to change a building code and then be forced to go to the latest 2026 energy code.
agreed. Go for your committee.
All right, so I'll work on that, putting that together. Bill and Tom and myself. We'll take a look at the different codes to see which one might be the best for us. All right, so the other item on the agenda is any other additional items that we wanted to send to the town attorney. And I will say that if we come up with a list now, and as we start going through the entire document, as it's revised, if we see anything else we want to add to it, we can. I did know, I went back as we were going through the minutes of all the different meetings to note in the zoning code. I tried to identify when we had questions for the town attorney. I do know the meeting that I jotted down that had the most questions, or had the questions, I guess, for the town attorney, was back on February 12th, 2024. But after looking at them, I think they've been addressed, but I just want to make sure they've been addressed. Um, one of the questions on that meeting was regarding the demolition permit. And I believe we got input back from the town attorney and we came up with the demolition permit already. Also in that meeting was the discussion regarding the final inspection and the certificate of occupancy. And I believe he gave us feedback on those two items, which we've put into the inspections and into the code already.
Yeah, on the,
Yes.
on the demolition permit, I
Yes.
thought we, came to the conclusion that it would be redundant. Because it was a state required permit. The town wasn't gonna.
We added it into the zoning code. And we'll see it as we go through the code, but I believe we added it into the code saying that a state demolition permit is required.
Okay.
When necessary, and we would not have a Pitkin demolition permit required.
Yes, isn't that what you heard?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I concur with.
That's in the code, and we'll see it here in just a little bit. That is the only areas that I saw where we had asked the town attorney input, other than now this one bullet point that just came up tonight on complaints, if they could be by the owner or resident only, or if that's discriminating. Is there anybody else that has any other items that we were going to send to the town attorney? We haven't had answered.
It seemed to me like there was another, but I'm not finding it.
And I've looked at all my notes from the previous meetings, and I've not been able to find any other bullet points either. Barry, you don't have any others, do you?
I found one of them.
Okay,
And you probably know where the root of this came from. But we need the definition from the attorney of completion. You follow what I'm saying? In other words, it goes back to Sharon Owens' deal. What is completion? Does it have to have siding? Does it not have to have siding? Does it have to specify the building permit said exactly what they were doing? And if they only did that part and just framed it and quit, is the question I have down here for the attorney.
so if I recall properly, back when all that was brought up, the attorney had looked at looked at the building permits, and the way the building permit read, it didn't say, in that particular example you gave, it didn't say that it was a remodel of the structure. It had certain bullet points that the building permit was for, and he considered that building permit was completed because those specific items were completed. I think the zoning, or the building codes, whichever, whether it be the UBC 97 or 15 or 18, do have definitions in those codes when say a structure is completed, a house is being built and is completed. And I think it defines that real clear. So I think part of it goes to our building permits, that they're clear to begin with when they're written.
If we can get a precise final inspection definition, I think it will cover this question that I have from that previous meeting back up the road, probably 8 months ago, about a completed project. I don't know where we need to put it or whatever, but I think it needs to be defined to prevent future problems and misunderstandings that we've run into in the past.
Okay, so is that, you want to send that, what is a definition for final inspection, to the town attorney? Or
Yes, I don't know if it goes into the actual building permit itself or into the codes that, for example, some kind of covering on the roof is a complete roof rather than just sheeting. I don't want to get technical, but we have gone through a terrible situation that we ought to not repeat.
Can I just say something briefly?
Please.
I can't think of a nicer way to say this. If we ask our attorney for the definition of completion, it's going to be embarrassing. I think that the situation that occurred earlier was not because people didn't understand what complete meant. I think it's because there was not a complete understanding of what was on the permit to be able to determine if the permit had all the projects finished. It wasn't a definitions issue.
Right.
So I'm just, since I'm gonna have to make that phone call requesting that the zoning board please reconsider directing me to ask that question. Thank you.
so what I've written down in my notes is, prior to you sending it to the town attorney, I'd like to identify in an international residential code, either 15 or 18, if it identifies what a final inspection is as a description. Because I think if we have that in the code, that's what we need. Okay.
So at this point, then, the only thing that I have for clarification is whether or not it's legal and or advisable to limit complaints to only residents and property owners.
Definitely have that.
Yes, unless there's something else as we go through that we identify.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Anything else? All right, so that clock quit. It's 8:29. So I'm gonna ask the board, because I'm open either way. Do you want to scroll through the changes in the zoning code as it's written? Or would you rather table that until the February meeting?
Oh, this is Jess. You're not gonna get through all of the in
No, we're not.
15 minutes.
No, we're not.
So probably we ought to dedicate a whole meeting to it.
I think if we start going through it now, we're gonna get through 7 or 8 of the pages, maybe. And then we're gonna wonder where we're at. So
I'll follow the leadership.
I'm in favor of, man, I don't like kicking the can down the road. But I'm in favor of where we're at already in time tonight. If everybody keep this document where they can read it and review it and put notes on it. And then in the February meeting, we will put it back on the agenda to review the zoning code revisions in their entirety. And by then, I'm sure we'll have an answer back from the town attorney on our one question there.
So we just have one question for our attorney as of tonight,
As-
in behalf of the February meeting, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Roger, are you okay with that?
Yes,
Okay. So that last bullet point, review, discuss, and possible action on next steps for proposed updated zoning code revisions. I'd like to have a motion to table that till the next meeting.
Roger, if you move, I'll second.
yes, I'll move. That way do that.
Okay, Roger's moved. Jesse is seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Then the last item should go really quick, I believe. And that is the building permit tracking spreadsheet. Just to clarify, from Tom's invoice to the town had the permit numbers on it. So I added the permit numbers to the spreadsheet with the exception of the three, the Wallahues and houses, because I don't know what those numbers are. The other thing I'll just, so if you have it in color and you wonder what the color is, in kind of a burnt orange, there's, looks like 6 different permits that were issued. I only put those on there. Those were permits that were on Tom's invoice, but we did not have on the tracking spreadsheet. So Tom told me he would do better starting in January here of giving us all the permits. So we've got them all in one spot. But as far as any of the other permits on the spreadsheet, there's a couple that are in progress. A number that have been completed. I'm presuming there's a couple, well, I know there's been some in January, so we'll worry about those after the meeting next week. Okay. And then in the 2023 building permits, everything's complete. Except for a well for Beery and then Armstrong porch deck repair. It is done. Okay.
Now, who's it done?
Armstrong on 304 Main Street, where they put in
More rafters?
more rafters on the roof.
I think Doug said he didn't get it done.
Well, I think they're all in.
There,
Who said he didn't get them?
Doug Armstrong himself. I thought he said he had.
Right, and he has Paul good.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, thank you.
So if everybody else is okay with it, if I go the 23 and 22 building permits and I hide everything that's completed, is everybody okay with that?
Certainly.
So we don't have to look at all this, and then I'll start a new section for 2025.
And a petty question or two.
Okay,
Number 70, Benbow. We have no status declaration.
oh, wait, okay, hang on a second. You said number 70, that doesn't,
70.
that doesn't make, okay, there it is.
Here on the left.
converting living quarters in a shed.
Yeah.
And I think I marked that as, uh, I marked it as green. I don't think they ever did anything with it.
I think Tom and I inspected that way back up the road and
Yeah.
stuff, and it just got dropped.
It's marked green.
Yes, over there on the creek. So can we just wipe it out?
It's gonna, in fact, I'm gonna do it on a spreadsheet right now. I'll just hide it. And you won't see it again. That means there's nothing for 2021 building permits left open. The only thing for 2022 is Molly's. And she gave us a letter on that.
Yes.
What's that?
Likely wind up giving you another one.
So then the rest of them in 2022, I'm gonna hide those. So you won't see them again. 2023, Armstrong is done. On Beery's on the well, I'm not gonna keep it on here anyway, because that's under the environmental health. Everything else is completed from 2023. And
So
go ahead, Tom.
When did Victorino pull his permit for his house and garage?
7/3 of 24, and it was a plan change.
Right.
Is what you told me. So that one's for 20, so that's rolled into 24 now. I only see that one's open. Chris is open for the back, the kitchen and bath. And I believe the Taylor Hotel for the roof to cover the back walkway, that's done, isn't it? So that's really gonna clean it up. We don't have much outstanding at all. So, looks good. We'll see what 2025 brings. I think you've got a couple big ones already.
Yeah, you guys saw those. Nassau and the hotel.
The hotel. Yep. So, good. All right. Any other questions on that? That looks good. All right. Takes care of that. There's no other old business, so if someone would like to make a motion to adjourn, let's go home. Got a motion from Ed and a second from Ed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for everybody's input tonight. Participation. Thanks for taking the time. It gets lonely here sometimes when no one shows up. See you, Ricky.
I can see y'all are talking.